Everyone has their favourite topics, and this question here, which is on the high-low method, forecasting a semi-variable cost, this is my favourite calculation question in the syllabus. So let's go through how to do it. We're asked, what's the budgeted total production cost if the company operates at 85% capacity? And in the scenario, we're told that they can make up to 10,000 units. And here's my production cost at two different production levels, 60% and at 100%. And here's my total production cost at each of those two levels. You can see there's a change, can't you, in the production costs, which means there must be at least some part of this that's variable. Now, instead of working with these percentages, what I quite like to do is turn these into an amount in units. I find it a little bit easier to work that way. So I'm doing 60% times 10,000, and 100% is obviously 10,000, and the calculation here at 85% capacity is going to be 8,500 units, isn't it? All I've done is do 10,000 times by the percentage each time. Okay, I just like to work in units more than I do to work in these percentages. I find it a little bit easier to think. Right. The high-low method then for forecasting a semi-variable cost. It has 3 steps. Firstly, calculating the variable cost per unit. Secondly, working out the fixed cost. And we do that by a process of substitution at either the high or the low point, don't we? And then forecasting our total cost. We're going to go through each of these 3 steps in turn using these numbers. So step 1, working out the variable cost per unit. And for this, we look between our 2 points and work out, so the high and the low point, we work out the change in cost between the high and the low point and the change in units. So the change in cost between the 2 points, that's our cost at the high point, 15,120, minus the cost at the low point, 11,280, divided by the change in units, 10,000 units minus 6,000 units. So that gives us a variable cost of $0.96 per unit. Lovely. On to our second stage then, working out the fixed cost by substitution. And for this, you either need to pick the high point or the low point. It doesn't really matter which of them. But we're going to need the formula that the total cost at that point, so the 15,120 or the 11,280, is made up of 2 parts. The fixed cost, which is an amount in total, plus the variable cost per unit, which we just calculated of 0.96 per unit, times by the number of units at that level. Let's pick the high point. It's a nice round number at 10,000 units, isn't it? It's going to make life a little bit easier for the calculation. So my total cost of 15,120 at the high point is made up of my unknown fixed cost, but my known amount of $0.96 per unit of a variable cost times by 10,000 units. So multiplying out those numbers to get to a nice number there, it comes to a total variable cost of 9,600. So out of my 15,120 of total cost, 9,600 is variable. So I can then work out what the fixed cost is by looking at the total cost, which includes both fixed and variable, the 15,120, and subtracting out the fixed cost, the variable cost of 9,600 to leave me with 5,520 of fixed cost. Right, we're well on our way to answering this question now. On to the last bit, forecasting the total cost. The third stage requires exactly the same formula as stage 2. The total cost is equal to the fixed cost plus variable cost per unit times the units. But now I'm going to work at this point here, the point I'm trying to forecast of 8,500 units. So let's start sticking some numbers in. So my fixed cost, we just calculated it, 5,520. The variable cost per unit is 0.96. And the number of units we're forecasting for is 8,500. So I can now multiply those numbers out to get me to a total variable cost of 8,160. When I add that to my fixed cost, I get to a total cost of 13,680. Quite a time-consuming question that, but it's There's quite a few shorter questions, aren't there, across the exam paper where you can make the time up. It's important on a fiddly calculation question that you do take your time. Don't rush, because it's quite easy to make a silly calculator mistake. So be methodical, follow the process, and you'll get to the right answer.